All right, good morning and welcome back. Today we are going to begin chapter 14. This is chapter 14, section 1. We're basically going to start talking about immigrants that were coming into the country, the different places you're seeing immigrants coming from, and basically why they wanted to and chose to come to America. So why people migrated, the hopes of immigrants. Most immigrants endured hardships to come to America. Nearly all immigrants made the ocean voyage in steerage, which was the cheapest deck on a ship, where hundreds of people lived jammed together for 10 days to a month, and many became ill and even died. And if people would die on the voyage over, they would basically just throw them overboard. Not good food. Water was bad. I mean, this was a very, very difficult. People are very cramped into these spaces where disease can run rampant. It was a horrible trip, but it was a trip that people took because there was so much promise at the other end of it. Most early immigrants came from Britain, Ireland, Germany, Scandinavia, and China. So basically what you're seeing is your northwestern Europe and then your Chinese who are coming across because of the gold rush in California. Now, there were what they call push-pull factors bringing immigrants to the U.S. So there were some things that were pushing the people out of their home countries, and it was pulling them toward the Americas. So first, your push factors. You had major population growth, which was causing there to be land shortages, food shortages, and people were just trying to get out of there. The agricultural changes that were occurring, you didn't need as many people to work on the farms, so people didn't have the same jobs. Crop failures, especially like in Ireland, you had the potato famine where between 1 million and 2 million people starved to death, so people are trying to get away from famine. The Industrial Revolution, you're seeing that take place in the United States, so there's more jobs and more opportunity. Not to mention you're seeing it occur in these countries as well, and the jobs are just tough jobs. So you see more people going to the factories, but a lot of these people, their livelihoods were the farms, and they knew coming to America that they could possibly get some. And then religious and political turmoil. They knew if they came to America, they could worship however they pleased. And that wasn't necessarily the truth in their country. Now, pulling them, freedom. Everybody wants to be free. They want to have the chance to vote. They want to have the chance to do what they want to do. Economic opportunity. There was the stories about the streets being paved with gold. And then abundant land. Like I said, the Industrial Revolution, where most people now are moving to working in the factories, but they could come to America and own their own land. And in their countries, typically owning land is what represented wealth. Now, Scandinavians seek land. These would be Norwegians and Swedes and some Danish people. Public land was sold for around $1.25 an acre, which lured thousands of Scandinavians. A Swedish law of 1768 restricted the right to emigrate, which is to leave the country. But growing poverty caused them to cancel the law in 1840. And once they canceled the law, massive amount of people actually started moving out. In the U.S., they searched for lands that were familiar, settling in the Midwest, especially Minnesota, Wisconsin, and parts of Michigan. That's why you go there today, you have a huge Scandinavian population, or basically people whose ancestors were Scandinavians. Germans pursue economic opportunity. Germans, whenever they came, Germans were typically always welcomed with open arms. First of all, Anglo-Saxons, which would be English people, were of Germanic heritage. But also, typically when Germans came, they came and had skills, and they were typically skills that were very useful and helpful to us. So when the Germans came, most people were pretty happy. Like the Scandinavians, many Germans moved to the Midwest, especially Wisconsin, because the climate allowed them to plant their traditional crops of oats. Many also settled in Texas. The Germans also settled in cities, and many became very successful because they were most often skilled workers, like I said. They were artisans. So the fact that they had skills, they typically came in and then were very useful in society. Many of the Germans were Jews and worked up to owning and running their own businesses. Germans were the largest immigrant group of the 1800s and largely influenced American culture. So a lot of these things that we see as like American culture is actually German. Take the gymnasium, that's Germanic. Take the hot dog, sausage, bratwurst, those types of things. That hamburgers, that's all German. Take the Christmas tree, that's Germanic. So a lot of these things we see as American are actually German. Irish flee hunger. Now, the Irish, when they got here, they were actually treated quite poorly. First of all, English people typically didn't like the Irish. They saw them as second-class citizens, so there's a start. Plus, when the Irish showed up, they didn't have many skills, so they were taking the jobs of lower-level people, and I shouldn't say lower-level people, but people who were not educated, who were just fighting for jobs, and it became a huge, huge issue. Most Irish were Catholics and were controlled by Protestant Britain. Therefore, to flee the poverty and hunger caused by British rule, some fled to America. In 1845, a disease hit Ireland's main food source, the potato, and a famine followed, killing 1 million people, so between 1.5 and 2 million Irish fled their homeland. The Irish farmers became city dwellers in America. The only skills they had were being potato farmers. So when they came in, and here's the problem. See, when the Germans showed up, they typically had a little bit of money to get them to the place they want to go. So the Irish show up and they're completely destitute. So they get off the boat, they have no money. So the first thing you got to do is try to find a job. Well, now they're pouring into these cities, taking the jobs of other people, and because of that, they're looked down upon. Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and Baltimore were all about a quarter Irish, so they take over the population in a lot of these areas. The Irish were uneducated and forced to take backbreaking jobs that paid very little. Many of the men helped to build the railroads. And you could go and you could see this down there. Help wanted, no Irish need apply. So you could see the derogatory, you could see the prejudice towards the Irish. Now, U.S. cities face overcrowding. Immigrants and natives alike flocked to the cities in hopes of finding a better life. Between 1800 and 1830, New York's population grew from 60,000 to over 200,000. Rapid urban growth caused many problems by overcrowding the cities. There's not enough plumbing. There's not enough sewage. People would come in. You can see in this picture, these are all people living in the same room, coming in, and they're paying by the night to live in this room together. Massive, massive overcrowding. Rapid urban growth caused many problems by overcrowding the cities. American cities were not prepared to tackle the growth problems, and many had no police force, fire department, and not enough sewage. This is where, so even to this day, if you go to like New York, you go to Boston, Philadelphia, Baltimore, they have a tradition of Irish families who are the police officers and the firefighters, and they still to this day, you'll go there and there's third, fourth, fifth generation police officers, and there's this very Irish tone to the police forces. Now, some Americans oppose immigration. Due to fear of immigrants for many different reasons, many immigrants face prejudice. Native-born Americans that wanted to eliminate foreign influence called themselves nativists. I always find this ironic and funny that now, earlier, these people's ancestors were the ones that were coming to America, taking Native Americans' land. Now these people are prejudiced towards the people coming in because they fear that they're going to lose their jobs and their land. Many formed a secret society, and when asked about it, they said, "I know nothing about it." So in the 1850s, when they started a political party, they became known as the Know Nothing Party. The Know Nothings wanted to ban Catholics and foreign-borns from holding office, and they called for a cut in immigration and a 21-year waiting period to become a citizen. So you're starting to see this prejudice of one citizen against another citizen. Now, that's the end of chapter 14, section 1. You got any questions, get a hold of me. Make sure you're doing the readings and the worksheets. Have a great day.